Hello, my name is Tiffany and I've been taking care of African violets most of my life as a hobby. I've been doing this for about 32 years now. And I have had great success with African violets. I've had every type of plant available, but African violets seem to do the best for the environment that I live in. I live in Northeast Ohio, USA, and I think that's Zone 5B. I usually keep my plants indoors almost all the time for the African violets. I have had success on keeping my African violets outside in the summertime. I had them on a shoe rack up against the house in a shady area, and I didn't get much sun at all, so it was very good, particularly for those plants. And they bloomed and they did very well all summer. Other than that one summer that I had them outside, I pretty much have kept them indoors. The longest African violet that I had live was 12 years. And it was a beautiful, big, gorgeous plant full of blooms. So you're probably thinking, how do I keep my violets so healthy and blooming? Well, the question is, the answer is you have to have the correct environment. You have to have good humidity. I try to keep my humidity around 50%, and in the winter, I put a little humidifier on my tea cart for my plants for when the humidity is low because of the furnace. But in the summertime, because I live in a humid environment, in the summertime I don't need a humidifier. I can just open the window and my humidity will be anywhere between 50 to 100%. And of course, the African violets love humidity. They do excellent in that. And also with shade. They like shade. I would say about 4,800 lux. If you get one of those meters, that's about the minimum that you want your light to be at for your plants. They usually like a little bit more, but they tend to like shade. They do not want to be in hot, direct sun. Now, the way that they like to be watered is from the bottom or the top. When I water my plants from the bottom, it is probably the optimum idea to have a rope. That's what I usually do. I use a rope and I will put it at the top of the pot and let it go down to the bottom through the hole in the bottom of the pot as a wick. So then the plant can absorb water. But they will also absorb water if you just put some water in the bottom of the pot. I also use mason jars and I put water in there. My miniature violets to the left, the two on the left, are in mason jars with water. And they have the wicking system. I've had those plants for about 2 years now. I got them from a nursery and the plants were very small and they have grown, probably doubled in size. There's probably a semi-miniature or miniature. The other ones are miniatures and they're also the regular larger size. I just got this grow light a few days ago, the larger one with the 2 wands. I bought that at Amazon, and so far I like the light. I like it because it has a timer on it for 3 hours, 9 or 12. and I can control what color I want the light, red, blue, or both. I hear that red is good for seedlings. And so right now I just have it on the blue light. And to the right, I also have a light that's sitting in a vase. That light is pretty much the only light that I've had for about 10 years now. And it's done very well for all of my plants. I usually don't have lighting on my violets. I usually just use the window for the lighting. It's not until just recently that I decided to get more lighting for them. I'm very pleased with my African violets and how they've been growing. Sometimes I will have a leaf that will fall off of the plant, and I will put it in dirt, and I will actually get new plants from it. I'm in the process of doing that right now with 2 leaves. And I would say that I've been keeping that leaf in the dirt for about a month now. As you can see, I also have other plants. I have an air plant that I've had for almost 30 years now. That's in the back on the right-hand side. I also have other plants that I cut and make cuttings out of. That's the plant that's in the red vase. So you can see how beautiful some of my African violets are. This violet towards the left is probably the best violet as far as blooming goes. I've never had a violet that bloomed so abundantly like this. This violet came from Canada. I had purchased it at Myers. These are my miniature plants, the miniature African violets, and they are going to be blooming soon. They have little buds down by the bottom of in between the leaves. When I bought these plants, they were so tiny, and they have doubled in size. I have a little miniature rose in the blue pot there. That miniature rose has an interesting story about it. I had purchased it at a grocery store, and I put it in a new pot. All the leaves fell off of it, and it just looked like a stick. And I couldn't figure out why, because I have the plant in optimum lighting, fertilizing, special lights. But I've noticed that though with many of my roses, just recently within the last year. This orchid that I have, I just recently transplanted it. So you can see the holes that are in it, in the pot. That's actually a plastic cup, and I had used a screwdriver and scissors to cut that to make a nice little pattern, so the roots would get extra air, and a very nice way to mist just the roots if I wanted to. This plant has done very well. I've had it for about 2 years now, and it has beautiful blooms. First they look green, and then they turn to yellow, and then they turn to the beautiful purple color. As you can see, my humidity is quite high right now. It's a 60% humidity in here. and it's June right now, so I don't have the humidifier up. All I gotta do is open the window. It would probably be higher if I had opened the window earlier. It'd probably be about 100% humidity. So the way to get your plant to bloom continuously is optimum lighting. If you want your plants to thrive, give them low light. But if you want them to bloom continuously, then you need to get some extra lighting for them without putting them outside. This window gets a lot of light late afternoon, and that's enough to get the plants to want to bloom in the summertime. But in the wintertime, they haven't been blooming because the light has been pretty low here. That's why I got the extra additional grow light. Now, I would suggest not getting the leaves wet. The leaves of an African violet have a little bit of hair on them, and they don't like to be wet. So don't mist the plant at all. You don't want those leaves wet. But if you want to get dust off, you can occasionally mist it. I probably mist mine less than once a year. And of course, I use a paper towel to make sure that they are completely dry. The air plant in the back is very easy to take care of. I mist it daily. It's quite large because it's very old. And I've been taking care of it for about 30 years now. And I mist it daily. And then I have a little container that I let the plant sit in that's full of water about once a week. And I also have a tiny desk fountain, and I let the plant, just the tips of the plant, get wet from the fountain, because this plant, the air plant, will sometimes get brown on the tips, and that's because it's just getting too dry. So to keep that from happening, I try to keep it in the fountain just whenever I think of doing it, and that just keeps them from getting brown tips at the end of them. What I like about this light in particular is that the control switch is very small, which is nice because it doesn't get in between or knock over some of the furniture in the room. And it just squeezes onto the table like that. And down below that is the switch. You can see the different options it has on off brightness or lower the brightness. And this button is to choose the red light or the blue light or both, and then below that here's the timer and then the on off switch. And I do like how this is small. I was surprised that this control switch is so small. I thought it was going to be quite large, but actually it's the perfect size. I've had my plants in many different places in my home. Right now I have it downstairs facing the front of the house. And several years ago, I've had it facing the backyard. And I still always had issues with light, even under the brightest light from the window, which always stops the plant from blooming. And of course, in summer, it's going to naturally bloom. The African violets will, due to having more light coming through the window. My orchid, I've tried many different ways to get it to bloom. It's kind of a interesting way to get the plant to bloom. What makes it bloom is getting it shocked, by shocking the plant in fall and in early spring. If you put the plant outside for a while, maybe just in the afternoons, just in a shady area, or in the early evenings or mornings, it will shock it to bloom if it's about 40 degrees. I've tried that. I've been told that. It didn't work. I've had it in the screen in my window all night. I've had it outside on the porch. Nothing. No blooms. And then one day, while I was playing my harp, I'm a harpist, I had the window cracked open. It was about 28 degrees. And it was snowing. It was just too hot in the harp room because I like to keep the room around 70 degrees. And it was about almost 75 in there. So I opened the window and I just cracked it from the top. And it was enough to shock the plant into getting it to bloom. And so I was very pleased with that. And I've tried everything to get the orchid to bloom. I've put it in front of a humidifier. I've put it in the bathroom, hoping that the steam would shock the plant or the excess heat in the room. But what works best for this orchid is just by opening the window on a cold day. And it likes to bloom twice a year, in the fall and in the early spring. It was originally a very small orchid plant. It looked like a miniature. And I'd actually had rescued it from a nursery. And they had given it to me for free. So I took it and gave it a second chance. And the plant's very happy and it's doing well. I believe that this orchid actually it's African violet, with all of the flowers on it, are blooming so well compared to the other African violets that are sitting on a tea cart, is because I think the nursery that it came from had a lot of additional lighting on it, so you could tell the difference between a plant that came from a nursery that had extra lighting, grow lights on it, compared to my other African violets that did not have much grow lights on it during the winter. The only grow light that I used during the winter was that small light that's to the right, that's in the vase. That light was made to actually fit inside of the dirt of a pot to only light up one violet or one plant. Violets are very easy to take care of, but you have to keep that dirt moist. I usually keep my plants sitting in water for about 4 hours a day. And as you can see, I am watering them right now. That's why that they're in the mason jars. I particularly like the teapot as a good watering device for watering the African violet. That works out very well and easy. I just put water in the spigot. I water that one about every other day, but every other African violet that I have, it's watered about 4 hours a day. If I didn't do that, they would dry up. Each plant has different needs. And it just happens to be that my African violets do well when they sit in water most of the day. Some people keep their miniature violets in water all day long, continuously. It just depends on how the plant reacts to the amount of water that you give it. And just by checking the soil, you don't want the water, you don't want the dirt to be soggy where there's so much water in it that it feels totally saturated, but you just want it to feel that the dirt, that the soil is a little damp. Now, I've used all different types of soil for my African violets. I've used organic African violet soil. I've been using that now for many years, and that works very well. I may have in the past used regular potting soil, but I don't remember. I've been taking carrot plants for 32 years now, but I think I pretty much just keep to African violet soil mix. And of course, if you can find the organic, that would be the best choice.